It's been a while since I talked about this to anyone but those involved. But after everything that happened, I feel compelled to document my experiences. My name is Travis Kincaid, and I find myself drawn back to the memories of the time when I was thrown into the deep end of whatever this has become. It all began around a year ago, when I made the decision to leave behind the familiar comforts of home in the Midwest and embark on a new journey in the bustling city of Seattle. Fresh out of college and eager to carve out my path in the world, I found myself captivated by the promise of adventure that awaits me in the Emerald City. Seattle didn't exactly welcome me with open arms. However, I saw possibility, but I had no idea what I was in for. I threw myself into the vibrant tapestry of city life, eager to explore every corner and unravel every secret it had to offer. That was my personality, and it makes sense with my new job being an investigative journalist. I was excited to become more familiar with places like Pike's Place Market and Mount Rainier. It was during one of these explorations that I first crossed paths with Elias Blackwood, who was a tour guide for the Seattle Underground Tours. I heard about these, but I've never been on one. After talking to Elias for a bit, I signed up for one he was doing the next day. It was a colorful autumn evening when I found myself standing at the entrance of the Seattle Underground Tour, known for its glimpse into the city's hidden past. I had heard whispers of the tour's mysterious tunnels and secret passageways, and as someone with a penchant for exploration, I couldn't resist the opportunity to delve into Seattle's forgotten history. As I joined the group of eager tourists, I couldn't help but notice Elias, our tour guide for the day, was a little fidgety. There was something off about him, a sense of quiet hesitation that drew me in despite my initial reservations about the tour. "You alright, guy?" I said, approaching him. "Is it that obvious?" I'm fine. Just hearing things lately. Didn't sleep well last night," he murmured as he was listing off excuses for him being on edge. Elias led us through the maze of underground passages, his voice weaving tales of a bygone era filled with bootleggers, brothels, and the seedy underbelly of Seattle's past. I hung on to his every word, captivated by the stories of a city long forgotten by time, the underground city. But as we ventured deeper into the tunnel, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over me like a heavy fog. It was as if the shadows themselves were watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And strike they did. In the blink of an eye, the darkness descended upon us, swallowing me whole as these shadow creatures emerged from the depths. The presence was suffocating, their touch sending shivers down my spine as they descended upon me with a savage ferocity. The crowd I was with dispersed with frantic screams as people ran down the various tunnels. "Wait! We all gotta stick together!" Elias shouted. "Damn it!" With that, he bolted down a tunnel, leaving me to deal with whatever the hell this was that my borrowed flashlight could make out. I fought back with all the strength I could muster, but it was no use. The darkness enveloped me, consuming my senses as I struggled to break free from its icy grip. Suddenly, out of the shadows it emerged, a twisted, otherworldly figure that seemed to defy all logic and reason. Its form shifted and contorted in the dim light, its eyes burning with an unholy glow as it bore down upon me with savage intent. Instinct kicked in, and I lashed out with the only weapon at my disposal, a jagged piece of scrap metal that I had found lying on the ground. This wraith, like in Lord of the Rings, recoiled with a hiss of pain as the makeshift weapon connected with its form. But it was relentless in its pursuit, its ethereal tendrils reaching out to ensnare me. With every ounce of strength I possessed, I fought back against the creature, fueled by fear and desperation. And then, in a stroke of luck, or perhaps divine intervention, I managed to land a solid blow, sending the wraith reeling back into the darkness from whence it came. For a moment, all was still, the echoes of our struggle fading into the abyss. And then, with trembling hands and a racing heart, I stumbled onward, the memory of the encounter burning bright in my mind like a beacon from hell. It was in that moment of desperation that I stumbled upon Elias, his figure illuminated by the soft glow of a lantern as he emerged from the shadows. Relief washed over me as I realized I wasn't alone in the darkness. "Elias!" I gasped, my voice hoarse with fear and exhaustion. "Thank God I found you. Those things, they attacked me out of nowhere." Elias's expression was grave as he studied me, his eyes betraying a hint of concern. "I feared as much. Travis, right? These shadow wraiths are relentless, hungry, and apparently, we're on the menu." I nodded, my heart still racing with adrenaline. "What are they, Elias? And why are they attacking people all of a sudden?" Elias's gaze turned distant. "This isn't the place. Let's get moving." I sat in Elias's dimly lit living room, the events of the night still fresh in my mind. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched a cup of tea, my eyes darting nervously around the room as if expecting the shadow race to materialize at any moment. Elias poured himself a glass of whiskey and settled into a worn leather armchair, his expression somber as he regarded me. "We're safe now, Travis. The shadow race won't dare to venture into the light of day and especially past the tunnels." I nodded, my throat tight with fear and uncertainty. "But what are they? And why did they attack us?" Elias took a sip of his whiskey, his gaze distant once again, as he recounted the history of the shadow race. "My dad would tell me scary stories about these things. The shadow race are ancient beings," Elias began, his voice low and grave. "They've lurked in the depths beneath Seattle for centuries, hidden from the eyes of men. Legend has it that they were once revered as guardians of the underground realms, tasked with maintaining the balance between the world above and the darkness below." "Wait, like heaven and hell?" I asked. "Something like that. Unfortunately, these kind of stories have come from somewhere," he pointed out. I listened intently as Elias continued. His words painted a vivid picture of a world shrouded in mystery and danger. "But as the city expanded, the shadow race retreated further into the depths, fearing persecution from the surface dwellers," Elias explained. "They became creatures of darkness, feeding on the fear and uncertainty of those who dared to venture into their domain. They gave rise to urban legends like the boogeyman, shadow people, things like that." My mind raced with questions. But why did they attack us now, after all these years of hiding? Elias sighed, his expression weary. "I believe hunger may be one of the driving forces behind their emergence. The shadow race feed on the essence of fear and uncertainty, and as the city grew and expanded, their food source dwindled. Now, I guess with the recent disturbances in the tunnels beneath the city, they see it as an opportunity to satisfy their hunger." I nodded, a sense of dread settling over me like a heavy cloak. "So what do we do now?" Elias met my gaze, his eyes steely with determination. "We fight, Travis. We fight to protect the city, because no one else knows what's going on. And with my job, it's not like they're going to leave me alone. But first, We must uncover the truth behind these disturbances and put an end to them. Dude, that sounds both really cheesy and awesome. I feel like we're in an episode of Supernatural, I said sarcastically, trying to hide my shaking nerves. I may have been thrust into the world of darkness and danger, but I was determined to see it through to the end. This kind of thing was, weirdly, right up my alley. But just the thought of going back down there, that far down, gave me chills. I joined him once again on his tour the following day. After he closed the tour office doors, we grabbed our stuff and headed back down. As Elias and I ventured deep into the labyrinthian tunnels beneath Seattle, our encounters with the Shadow Race became increasingly frequent and intense. Each skirmish left us battered and bruised, our movements clumsy and uncoordinated, as we struggled to fend off the spectral assailants. At first, our attempts at teamwork were faltered and disjointed. Our actions, more reactive than strategic. We stumbled over each other, our communication fractured and chaotic as we tried to anticipate each other's movements. But with each passing encounter, we learned from our mistakes. We actually developed a silent language of gestures and glances, a wordless understanding born out of necessity and shared danger. Slowly but surely, we began to move with better coordination as we faced each new threat with grim determination. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when it felt like we were fighting a losing battle against a relentless tide of Shadow Race. For every wraith we defeated, it seemed like two more emerged from the tunnel walls, their hunger driving them. Yet, despite the odds stacked against us, we refused to give up. I don't know if it was adrenaline or just constant fear. It pushed us to the brink of exhaustion as we pressed on through the darkness. And then, almost imperceptibly, something shifted. Our movements became more synchronized, our attacks more precise as we found our rhythm amidst the chaos. We began to anticipate each other's actions as we fought these hellish aberrations. But even as we started to find our stride, I knew that we were far from reaching perfection. There were still moments of hesitation and uncertainty, split-second decisions that left us vulnerable to attack. Yet, with each passing moment, we grew stronger and more resilient, determined to survive the night and emerge victorious. And more importantly, alive against the darkness that threatened to consume us. We stumbled out of the tunnels, our bodies weary and battered from the relentless onslaught of the Shadow Wraiths. Each step felt like an eternity as we emerged into the cool night air, our breath combining in ragged gasps as we leaned against the nearest wall for support. Elias's apartment loomed in the distance, a beacon of safety and refuge amidst the unknown chaos we just trudged through. We made our way there slowly, our footsteps echoing in the empty streets as we walked in silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. Finally, we reached Elias's door, and with trembling hands, he fumbled for his keys, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he were trying to hold on to the moment for just a little while longer. Once inside, we collapsed onto the nearest chairs, our bodies sagging with exhaustion as we tried to catch our breath. The events of the night weighed heavily on us, the memory of our encounters with the Shadow Race still fresh in our minds. For a long while, neither of us spoke, the silence stretching between us like a tangible thing. And then, finally, I broke the silence, my voice hoarse with fatigue. What the hell was that, Elias? I muttered, my eyes fixed on some distant point beyond the walls of the apartment. Elias followed up. I know the stories about the Shadow Race, but I never imagined. I shook my head, my own thoughts still swirling with confusion and disbelief. I don't know, Elias. I don't know what they are or why they're here. All I know is that we're in way over our heads. Elias nodded. A grim expression settled over his features. We can't ignore this, Travis. Whatever's happening in those tunnels, it's only going to get worse if we don't do something about it. I met his gaze. A sense of determination stirred within me despite the exhaustion that weighed heavily on my shoulders. Then, let's do something about it. Let's find out what's going on down there and put a stop to it before anyone else gets hurt. Elias nodded. But first, let's have a beer. We've earned it. And so, we cracked open a couple of cold ones. The bitter taste of the brew washing away the lingering taste of fear and dismay. As we drank, we talked about our next steps. Our voices low and serious as we discussed the possibility of researching the history of the underground city at the public library. And as we sat there in the dim light of the apartment, battered and exhausted, but determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew that our journey was far from over. This was just the beginning. The next day found us at the public library, surrounded by towering shelves filled with books and ancient tomes. The air was heavy with the scent of dust and paper. The only sound, the soft shuffle of pages as we searched for information on the history of the underground city. Elias pored over old maps and manuscripts. His brow furrowed in concentration as he traced the intricate network of tunnels and passageways that lay hidden beneath the surface of the city. Meanwhile, I scoured the archives for any mention of the Shadow Race or their connection to the city's dark history. Hours passed in a blur as we delved deeper into the mysteries of the past, our minds consumed by the quest for knowledge. We found mention of ancient rituals and forgotten legends, tales of darkness and despair that seemed to echo the horrors we had encountered in the tunnels below. But amidst the darkness, there were glimmers of hope. We uncovered stories of brave souls who had dared to stand against the Shadow Race. Their courage and determination inspired us to press on despite the odds stacked against us. That's some pretty morbid stuff there, a voice came from behind me. I spun around in the record's viewing chair and ended up face to face with a grizzled-looking old man. He was pushing a mop. I guess he was the janitor. Oh, sorry to startle you. You working for St. Paul's? He inquired. Excuse me? What's that? I said, extremely confused. Sorry, the last time I saw someone studying that subject was from St. Paul's Cathedral, downtown. You're not with them? Elias stood up and came over, curious about the present conversation. He glanced around and in a quieter tone asked, "Do you know something about these things?" He said as he held up a picture of a hand-drawn wraith in a book in front of the old man. He took a hard look at both of us and then smiled. You want to go to St. Paul's Cathedral and ask for Father Cartwright. Tell him that Simon sent you, he said with a reassuring tone. With that, he put a finger to his lips in a hushing motion as Elias was about to say something. Then he turned around and continued his work. Well, that wasn't ominous at all, I couldn't help but saying as we walked out the front door of the library. I guess we need to go pay our respects then. Well, blessed are we, I said sarcastically. We made our way across town to St. Paul's Cathedral. I walked in the door, dipped my fingers in the holy water bowl, and made a symbolic cross motion as was customary in the church. Elias followed suit as we made our way to the pews at the front of the church. As we sat with our heads bowed in respect, Elias asked a passing nun where we could find Father Cartwright. In a very crafty way, he stated that we seek his guidance from a growing darkness. Apparently, that got his attention. He approached us, knelt down in front of us, and asked, Are you troubled, my sons? Yes, I said. There's a darkness overwhelming us. I looked up into his eyes and whispered, What do you know of shadow wraiths? He immediately stood up and said, I cannot help you, my sons. And he started walking away. Before he could take a single step, Elias piped up, Simon sent us. Father Cartwright stopped in his tracks, pivoted around, and said, Please come with me. He led us to the back of the church. Down a hallway in the back was his office. We entered and sat down in the 2 chairs opposite him. I hope you two know what you're getting yourselves into, he said with a stern tone. You mean the shadow wraiths? Yeah, we met, I retorted. Father, we can use all the help we can get here, Elias kindly pleaded. I know you do, my son, Father Cartwright said as he dropped a ragged book on the desk right in front of Elias. Wait, that's my... What are you doing with my father's journal? Elias said accusingly. You're not the first Blackwood who sat in this office asking for help. Wait, my dad died in an excavating accident. It was in the newspapers. In a matter of speaking, he was working in the tunnels with his team. However, it was to deal with those things, Father Cartwright stated, grinding his teeth. I guess it's fate that you're picking up where he left off. Elias was speechless, and he slowly grabbed his dad's journal and started looking through it. Father, we're going back down tonight to continue our so-called extermination job. Is there anything you can help us with before we head out? He stood up and walked over to a cabinet in the corner. He reached behind it and pulled out what looked like a rolled-up map. He laid it out over his desk. This is what the previous team mapped out before the accident. Elias finally talked. What accident? Your father was caught in a tunnel collapse with 2 other members of his team. There was only 1 survivor. Brent's address is in your father's journal. For the next half hour, Father Cartwright laid out the mission to us of the Wraith Hunters. And apparently, we were the new recruits. Drafted by the church, as it were. Before he sent us out the door, he gave us a private communion. You know, with the whole body and blood of Christ thing. He finished with putting cross necklaces around our necks for protection. Here's the most important thing for you boys to bring with you, he was saying as he opened the same cabinet door. He pulled out a small backpack and a shoulder bag. Inside the backpack were 4 military-style water canteens with crosses carved into them on both sides. Being in the Army, they looked like the fancy version of the ones we used in basic training. They were already filled with water. We were to understand that these canteens contained holy water, and any water put into them with a quick blessing will also become holy water. He gave us some parting words as we were ushered out of his office. This is the best I can do for you. Make sure you read your dad's journal. Anything you need to know is in there. Godspeed, gentlemen. Though we had only scratched the surface of the city's dark history, we knew that we were one step closer to uncovering the truth behind the shadow race and their connection to the underground depths. That journal was exactly what we needed, and as we made our way back to Elias's apartment, our minds buzzing with newfound knowledge and possibilities, I couldn't help but feel a sense of a heavy burden. This was just the beginning of our newfound responsibility. What the hell did we get ourselves into? My first week at the Seattle Times was a whirlwind of deadlines, interviews, and late nights spent poring over research. As a journalist, I was tasked with uncovering stories that shed light on the city's past and present. a task that both excited and challenged me in equal measure. Not to mention, a bit ironic given my current situation. But amidst the hustle of my daytime job, I found myself drawn back to the underground tunnels that I knew also needed my attention. Night after night, I would don my makeshift armor, holster those canteens, and venture into the darkness, my heart pounding with anticipation as I searched for signs of the shadow wraiths. It sounds a bit morbid to say, but the more time we spent down there, the more comfortable I became. It was a delicate balancing act, juggling my responsibilities as a journalist with my newfound role as a wraith hunter. There were nights when I would come home exhausted, my body aching from the physical toll of my nighttime excursions. But still, I pressed on, driven by a sense of duty and a desire to protect the city from a threat that no one knew about. To aid me in my quest, Elias and I decided to get a place together, pooling our resources and sharing the burden of our nightly endeavors. It was a practical decision, definitely born out of necessity. And as we settled into our new home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief knowing that I had someone by my side to watch my back. But even as I threw myself into my dual roles with determination and zeal, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. The shadow wraiths were growing bolder with each passing night, their attacks more frequent and ferocious than ever before. Oh, and I figured out the mystery that was Simon. He changed his name after Elias's dad's accident. Yep, he's Brent. He officially retired from being a wraith hunter and his old life. We invited him over to our place, and he told us one heck of a story over some cold ones. As I struggled to keep up with the demands of my job and my nighttime activities, I couldn't help but wonder how long I could keep up the charade. How long before my two worlds collided, threatening to unravel the delicate balance I had worked so hard to maintain. How did Batman do it? Journal update. It's hard to believe it's been a year since I first stumbled into this madness. Looking back, it feels like a lifetime ago. Let me recap. In the past 12 months, my life has been a whirlwind of chaos and danger, a constant struggle to balance my responsibilities as a journalist with my role as a wraith hunter. There have been sleepless nights spent patrolling the tunnels, heart-stopping encounters with the shadow wraiths, and moments of sheer terror that I thought would be the end of me. But through it all, there's Elias, my old brother in arms. Together, we've faced challenges that would have seemed insurmountable on our own, relying on each other's strengths and knowledge to survive. Our shared apartment has become a sanctuary of sorts, a place where we can let down our guard and take solace in its quiet comfort. It's a far cry from the dark, foreboding depths of the underground tunnels, but somehow it feels like home. For the record, I got some fun stuff to share. The ever-expanding map went from the size of a painting to covering the west wall of the apartment. We've created barriers and collapsed certain tunnels to establish borders. We even got a new member, so that makes 3 of us. His name's Kyle, and he's one of those living in the woods survival guys. He accidentally discovered a game changer when he threw a rock from his backpack at the shadow race and it cleared the tunnel we were in. He retrieved it, and we found out that it was an obsidian rock. You know, the kind that form from a volcano when lava cools. Father Cartwright found out that it's one of the materials formed from both creation and destruction. The church referred to it as a balanced element, a product of fire, which those damn shadows hate in the first place. So that's useful. And as I sit here now, reflecting on the adventures and painful excursions of the past year, I can't help but feel a sense of pride in how far we've come. We may not have all the answers, and the threat of the shadow race still looms every night. But we've proven that we're not alone in this fight. But along with that pride, there's also a creeping sense of numbness, a dulling of the senses that comes with facing danger day in and day out. We've become accustomed to the fear, almost numb to it, and it's seeping into every aspect of our lives, making social interactions difficult and awkward. And forget dating. This is the price we pay. Father Cartwright has a private service and communion with us once a month to keep us grounded. He makes it a mandatory thing. So, let this serve as a warning to anyone who dares to venture into the depths below Seattle. The shadow race are real, and they are hungry. They lurk in the darkness, waiting for their next victim, and they will stop at nothing to satisfy their insatiable appetite for fear. Be careful at night, and never go anywhere alone. Hey everyone, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my first outing in AI Nightmares. I'll be releasing one story each week, and that's going to be consistent as I figure out this process of streamlining it better. So with this story, I gave the AI general prompts. The things that I added to the story were all the conversation pieces, and of course, the final section about a year later. I wanted to add that to kind of like put a cap on this. One thought I actually had in my head is that these stories, I might try to see what I can do about maybe connecting them. So they might not just be a one-off. And I know lots of these stories from the other scary story channels. Shout out to Dark Somnium and Lighthouse Horrors. It's like these stories are kind of connected, and I kind of see that with Lighthouse Horrors. And most of them are just like one-offs, or they're unique stories. I might want to actually connect them and see how that goes. All right, everyone. You know the usuals. Like, comment, subscribe. It means a lot to this new channel I'm building, and I hope it's something that we can build together. All right, in saying that, here's my new mantra for AI Nightmares. It's okay to be scared. I am too. Embrace your imagination, and I'll see you next time.